Welcome to City of Keene in Focus. Thanks so much for listening. Good morning and welcome to our next episode of City of Keene in Focus. My name is Asa Kramer and I am joined this morning by Elizabeth Furland, our city manager, and Dawn Lucier, our public works director. Hi guys.
Hi, Asa.
Good morning, Asa.
How's everyone doing this morning?
Always good.
Fantastic.
Friday morning.
Friday morning, we love it.
Oh, we made it to Friday.
That's right.
Great.
As my predecessor used to say, it's only 2 more days until Monday.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Love that attitude. So last night was city council. Mm-hmm. It was a good, pretty brief one, actually.
It actually was a pretty short meeting. I don't know if they're just getting ready for their vacation. They get a little break coming up. But this time of year, we've already gone through the budget, and we've had lots of meetings about that. So there is a little bit of a lull in the summer before we start gearing back up again. So last night, we really just had a lot of informational updates that were accepted from committees last week. There were actually very few actions on the agenda. There was a couple of things that we are working on. Ashlet Green Space is one item we've been working on for a while. The land had been donated to the city, I think, John, probably 2 years ago now. It's been a while. And the Monadnock Conservancy is locating themselves. They're building a new building on that lot as well. And so our Public Works Department has been working with them on addressing some drainage. And last night, I think we wrapped that up. So it's exciting that I saw in the paper that the Conservancy just had their groundbreaking ceremony.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah. And then last night, there's a few more items that are put on more time. We are working through a parking traffic issue on Church Street, and there's just no easy solution to this. You know, some of the neighborhood schools that once housed a much smaller number of students have changed to charter schools. And what we're seeing now is with the growth and population of those schools in these neighborhoods, it's creating issues with drop-off and pickup times, creating a backup in traffic, creating some parking issues. And so recently, a member of the neighborhood on Church Street came forward to, I think it was MSFI, and talked about some of those concerns related to Gathering Waters School. And actually, the Public Works Director and I met with that neighborhood, and we were talking through some potential improvements. But I will just have to say, this is one of those things we're just not going to solve perfectly. We might be able to bring forward some solutions to improve the situation, but we have a school in the middle of a neighborhood. I think that's the challenge we'll continue to work through. So that'll be on an upcoming MSFI. And speaking of MSFI, we're talking about potentially canceling the MSFI for next week, unless the Public Works Director, who's looking at me funny right now, is going to tell me, no, we need to have that meeting. He has something coming in on the agenda.
I'll be heartbroken.
Good. Okay. Yeah, we just have one item on the agenda, and it's an issue related to public art. And they're working through sort of the process to put a piece of public art either in Pat Russell Park or elsewhere in the city. And I'm not sure it's ready. And so if that's the only thing and they're still working on it, likely Monday morning when we have our review of the agenda, it'll probably be canceled. But we'll wait and see, because sometimes I'm surprised on Monday morning by staff who have things that absolutely need to happen right now. And if that's the case, then we'll consider holding it.
And real quick, I just want to add, because we got this feedback last time, MSFI stands for Municipal Services,
yes.
Facilities, and Infrastructure. PLD stands for Planning, Licenses, and Development Committee. And FOP stands for Finance, Organization, and Personnel. So just a reminder on that.
Yeah, thank you. We tend to use lots of names for things, and that's a hard one to say. MSFI. I was always reversing it. I've gotten better, but yeah, that's a tough one. And then the other thing that's on more time is Councillor Favelis brought forward a request to place the Keno question on the next ballot. And that's on more time until we find out if the governor actually signs that bill. I haven't seen anything yet about it, but what it would do is if the governor approves the piece of legislation that was making its way through the process, it would require towns and cities to opt out instead of opt in. which would mean we'd need to take some action. And because there's a strict timeline for the ballot questions, we have it on the agenda waiting till we find out the answer to that. And then I guess the one big decision from last night was about parking, actually. There's been a lot of conversation related to parking on Washington Street and Court Street, concerns from the public about safety pulling in and out of driveways. The MSFI committee really wrestled with this question. Public Works Department came in and brought lots of scenarios related to distance, increasing the distance, and what that would mean to parking on these streets and sort of what the right balance is. And the committee decided, and the council agreed with them last night, to create a 10-foot buffer between parking spaces on Court and Washington Street. Now, this does not include residential neighborhoods, and that's really important because we are trying to actually create more parking opportunities in our residential neighborhood to encourage additional densification and provide more housing opportunities. So, Don, when do you think you're going to get that striped?
Wow, just put me on the spot there, boss. Thanks. So we actually refrained from painting that section of the on-street parking this spring because we knew that this was going to be resolved. The crew is going to have to black out the existing markings and then relay out with the new offsets. So I would say it's probably going to be right after the WOW program wraps up.
Oh.
That crew, the Highway Division, is a little short-staffed right now.
That's right.
So I don't know that they're going to have time to do it as part of the WOW, but probably shortly after.
Okay,
So
yeah, that
in
makes
August,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of WOW, how's that going?
You know, it's going great. Like I said, right now, the department overall has a lot of vacancies. There's been a lot of folks retiring, a lot of folks getting promoted, which is a great thing. We're bringing some new folks on board, which is also good. But because I think right now we're up to about 10 positions short. So we don't have as many people out in the streets doing the work as we would like, but we've gotten some great work. The highway crew has been putting a lot of effort into the sidewalk overlay that was approved as a new program by MSFI. Last week we did Ivy Drive and I believe a section of Robbins Road. This week they were working on Birch Street, so they did a long section of the Birch Street sidewalk, which was in very rough shape, and I think it's going to make a huge difference.
I am really excited about this program. I want to give you a shout out because we've struggled with addressing our sidewalks, and we put ourselves in this box where, you know, we had to replace sidewalk with concrete, and that's so expensive. But in the meantime, we have all of these asphalt sidewalks that are just continuing to deteriorate, and then you brought forward this wonderful idea to buy this piece of equipment.
It's definitely a compromise. I will say, you know, I told this to the committee. I wish I could tell them that concrete isn't a better long-term investment, but over the course of its 50 or 60-year life, it actually pays for itself. But that said, you know, it is very expensive. And right now our funding levels allow us to do about 1,500 feet or so a year of those replacements. It's going to take a very long time to get through our 23 miles of asphalt sidewalk. So it's a Band-Aid. It's an interim measure, but it really allows us a new way of addressing safety concerns and very poor sidewalk conditions for these neighborhoods. So I think it's going to be helpful.
Yeah, me too. So this morning we wanted to talk a little bit about stormwater resiliency and all of the projects that we've been doing at the city to help mitigate flooding. But before we get there, I would love for you just to talk a little bit about what everybody's talking about, the recent water main break.
The water main break. Well, I'll just start with, a story. Wednesday evening, I was just wrapping up dinner and settling in for the night, and I got a frantic text on my phone from the city manager.
Sorry about that.
Saying that one of our counselors had reported no water in his neighborhood. I very quickly got on the phone with our staff, and these guys are just absolute professionals. I got on the phone with Ben Crowder. He is our water sewer operations manager. He is responsible for the operation of the water plant. He oversees the folks that actually do all of the maintenance and repair work of the water distribution and sewer collection system. He had already gotten the alerts on his phone. They have an app on their phone that's connected to all of the information telematics that are in the system. So he had already gotten an alert to let him know that there was a catastrophic loss of pressure throughout the system. And they were already mobilizing folks to come in and figure out where it is and address it. You know, within short order, they had found it. And I talked to him shortly before 7. By 7:45, they had already isolated the break and restored pressure to the system. There was about 40 customers that were out of water for about 18 hours.
Yeah.
But the rest of the city did get pressure back very quickly.
Very quickly.
But in that 45 minutes or so, we lost over 1 million gallons of water.
When I sent you that message, I was actually sitting in a PLD meeting, and Councilor Jones handed me a piece of paper. And I was like, oh, I'll send this message to Don and say, what's going on in this neighborhood? Right after I got off the phone with you, I got a message from the fire chief and said, oh, this is a big one. We've got a lot of water coming out on Water Street. I actually left the meeting and met you there. I think we got there just about the same time. Yeah. It was very quick. It was amazing to see just because the quantity of water that was coming out and what was happening to the road. And I watched that section of the road sort of cave in. And this is all happening really, really quickly. And your team was out there in the middle of the road, in the water that was rushing by, trying to get this thing shut down. Just really great work by the team, and they did it so quickly. And then as soon as that happened, you saw the water recede, and we're left with a mess, obviously, but now they can deal with the break. And it was just a short amount of time before the system had water again, and it was repressurized. So you would think that would be great news, and we could stop right there, but that's not actually what happens.
I will say, we deal with water main breaks fairly regularly. I'd say probably on average we get about one a month throughout the year. And maybe in the spring they're a little more frequent than the rest of the year, but I'd say on average about one a month. This one was much more impactful because it was the largest pipe in our system. It's a 16-inch diameter pipe. It was such a large break. Once we found it, a side of the pipe about 3 feet long and as wide as 8 inches. So this whole basic side of the pipe just blew off. And because it was such a huge hole on such a large pipe, we were losing water so quickly, it actually started sucking water back in from the perimeter of the system. So higher areas of the system that had lower pressure actually went negative pressure. They were sucking in instead of pushing out. Now that's a real problem because the water distribution system, we know that it's safe to drink because water is treated, it's disinfected, and then it's constantly under pressure. So if there's a pinhole leak in the system somewhere, it's pushing water out.
Yeah.
Nothing can get back in. When you have a catastrophic break like this and the system is now sucking back in, there's no way for us to guarantee that it doesn't suck in contaminated groundwater.
Right.
That creates a risk. So because of that, we were required to issue what's called a precautionary boil order, meaning we don't know that there's dirty water in the system, but we can't guarantee that there isn't.
Right.
So until we can be 100% confident that there isn't, we issued this order to let people know that they should boil the water before drinking.
And I want to point out, you did that before the state sent us an email saying we had to do it. You guys were right on it. We got the message out really quickly with the help of Rebecca Landry and Andrea Bixby. The two of them worked together to get some messaging out very, very fast.
Yeah, the communication on this, I was just blown away with the two of them. They were working great together. They were sending out messages, and it was like a blow-by-blow. Folks wanted to know what was happening. They certainly had access to it. I will say that the Keene Sentinel was really great. They published a few articles about it, and they got the facts right, so they were great to work with. I did get a call from WMUR twice during the event. I know they covered it. That piece of it went very well. We're not happy to disrupt the service and put that much inconvenience on our customers, but all things being considered, I think this was well managed.
One of the other things that the average person probably doesn't realize is that once the water was restored, we're under this temporary boil order, how long it actually takes to get the tests back, because I was surprised by that. We were required to do 2 tests, and they both had to be negative for any contaminants, but they were 24-hour tests, which is why we had such a long boil order.
What we're testing for really is bacteria, and the way that you test for bacteria is you put a sample on growth medium. Basically, you mix it with some Jell-O that's got nutrients in it, and you put it in a warming oven so it keeps it at a nice warm temperature, and then you wait to see if bacteria grows a little colony on there. That takes 24 hours to run the test. So unfortunately, there's no way to hurry that along. And you do have to do it twice. You take the first set of samples, assuming everything comes back clean. We're required to go out, collect new samples, run it again, just to be absolutely 100% sure. It's a 2-day process just of samples in the oven.
Yeah, and the other piece that I think confused a lot of people is we also had to put it in the paper.
Right.
And the paper didn't print it till Monday, which the boil order was over by then.
Unfortunately, regulations don't always change with technology.
Yes.
So DES regulations, so we're required to notify all affected customers. And in this case, all affected customers are everybody who uses Keene water, including sections of North Swansea. They allow 3 different means of providing that official notification. You can either hand deliver a notice to every customer, certainly not practical when it's all customers, but that's how we usually do it for isolated
breaks,
instances.
yeah.
You can have it read aloud on broadcast media, which we did send it to broadcast media, but we have no way of compelling them to read it aloud. We don't know if they did or not. And it's like a 1-page notification. So I don't know that they are going to spend that much time on air reading this notice. Or you can publish it 3 consecutive issues of a newspaper of general delivery. And that's what we did. 3 consecutive issues for the Keene Sentinel means Friday, Saturday, and Monday because they no longer issue a Sunday paper. That caused some confusion because we lifted the order on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
But on Monday afternoon, people are seeing in their paper that there's still a boil order notice. I'm sure that raised a lot of eyebrows, but that's what that was about. It was a regulatory compliance issue. Hopefully, regulation catches up with technology and it allows for distribution via things like reverse 911 or municipal websites and that sort of thing.
Speaking of that, we tried for the first time using a telephone message through the state's emergency alert system. And so we have been working with the state to be able to access their system. We weren't quite there yet in terms of being able to do it ourselves, but over the next couple of months, hopefully we will be there so that we can send the message directly. But this time, our emergency management director worked with the state to send the message. A lot of people really liked that, but then of course that brings questions. Once they got the boil order, then they were sitting next to someone who didn't get the alert and they're wondering, why did you get it and I didn't get it? So it created a bunch of other questions, but it was a good test for us. So the state sent the message out, and then now what we're going to do is finish the training that's required so that we can send our own messages and do an educational campaign to get people signed up. So we'll do a big push, but we don't want to do that right now until we finish the process and we're ready to actually become operational on their system. But I think that's going to be a great tool for us because not everybody's on social media. They are not all signed up for our emergency alerts on email. They're not necessarily going to look at our alert banner on the website, and they may not have heard it on the radio. And so if you need to get the message out real quick, this seems like a really good way to do it. But it will take some time to get people signed up for it. We talked about using this system for weather alerts as well because we changed the parking requirements in the downtown. So I'm excited about that opportunity, and I think it's something that will help us in the future.
I do want to just throw a shout out to CNS.
Yes.
Thursday night, I was at the city council meeting, and as I was leaving, Councilor Remy grabbed me by the elbow and said, hey, CNS has got 20 pallets of water that we would like to donate to the city in just very short order. Just in a few hours, we got everything lined up, put the notice out to folks. We ended up distributing, I believe it was at the end of the day, more than 15 pallets of water.
Yeah, it's a lot of water.
It was a lot of water. We had our guys, we had a couple of folks from Keene PD, and they were just shoveling cases of water into people's cars.
It was amazing to watch. If you didn't go down and get some water, check out the Facebook site because there's a little reel on there. It was a very efficient system to distribute the water. Basically, cars were lining up and driving through. They would pull up when it was their turn, and someone from Public Works or from the police department was loading the water into their car, and then they would leave. It was a lot of people in a short amount of time. Yeah. And another shout out to your crew. They stayed late that night because we got more water. It was so popular and people were just still streaming in. So CNS gave us more water in the afternoon, and your crew went down and picked it up and stayed late.
They ended up handing it out from 8 in the morning until about 6 that night. 10 hours of shoveling water into cars. It was great.
Yeah.
We actually ended up having a little extra left over at the end of the day, and talked to CNS. They said, well, we really don't want it back. So we have that now available to use for other community events.
Yeah, it's great because we were going to have to come up with a solution for water for community night. So now we have it, thanks to CNS and to your crew.
Let's talk about stormwater.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right. First of all, I want to just point out that before I started with the city, there was a rash of pretty significant flooding events. Since I've been with the city, we've had really no flooding issues. So I'm going to take credit for that.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, in all honesty, we've been very lucky. The last couple of years, we've seen some storms that have come through that have really done a lot of damage to surrounding towns, and we've dodged the bullet. I don't think we can count on that luck holding out forever.
That's absolutely true. But I will say that while we can't count on that forever, the city has been very proactive in investing in our infrastructure for stormwater. Yeah. To help reduce these flooding events. And we have seen a difference. So during your tenure and mine, there's been some localized flooding and a couple of big, mostly I think July storms,
Yep.
where we've been out in different areas and low-lying areas where there's been some flooding. And in the past, those flooding events have spread further. And one of the things that I think about is Roxbury Street. That's been a problematic neighborhood, and we did not that long ago a pretty big project there.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that it's just luck that we've
No.
missed storms. Storms that a decade ago would have caused problems are able to be handled now. Our stormwater program is basically I'll call it like a three-legged stool. We have large infrastructure projects like Roxbury Street where we're adding capacity, we're upgrading pipes to be able to handle more water. We also have the minor repair projects where we're fixing existing infrastructure, not necessarily adding capacity, but fixing it so it's working properly the way it was originally intended and designed. And the third leg of that stool is our ongoing maintenance. Mm-hmm. So before I started, we implemented a program of drain cleaning where we had a contractor, just essentially a giant vacuum truck. They would vacuum out the storm drains. They collect all of the grit and grime and cigarette butts that wash off the roadways. They would vacuum that out. That program, I think, we're seeing a lot of benefit from. And what we're seeing now is that the whole system is functioning at its capacity.
Yeah.
Still undersized in some neighborhoods.
Right.
So we still do see some areas where we'll get localized street flooding, but then once the rain stops, it drains away very quickly because that pipe is able to fully utilize its capacity. I think that we're seeing a lot of benefits from that program. We've since actually transferred that from a contractor to an in-house operation. Mm-hmm. So we have our own vacuum truck pretty much all summer long. We're vacuuming out basins, and we try to do everything every 4 years.
Yeah. One of the things that I also think about, as it relates to the Roxbury Street project. So that project really upsized the drainage infrastructure. But what size pipe do we have coming into it from Main Street?
The pipe in Roxbury was a 36-inch brick pipe. It was literally hand-laid bricks. Yeah, it was pretty beautiful, actually. It was impressive work. But it just wasn't big enough. We replaced it with a 60-inch pipe. Now, that 60-inch pipe is taking all of the water from Central Square, a section of Washington Street, section of Court Street. The pipe that comes into that 60-inch from Central Square is a 24-inch pipe. Mm-hmm. It's a real bottleneck.
Yeah.
And in fact, the downtown project, in its infancy, was initiated because of that 24-inch pipe.
Yeah.
We know it's damaged, it's in poor condition, it's partially collapsed. So we knew we had to replace that pipe. At the inception of the downtown project, we're like, oh, geez, we're going to be tearing up Central Square. I don't want to do that more than once in my career. What else do we need to do? And then we looked around like, oh, well, the water main on Central Square is from 1868. It's probably time to replace that. Oh, the sewers along this side of Main Street are in really poor condition. We probably need to replace them. It kind of snowballed, but it began with that 24-inch pipe that's undersized on Central Square. We added a fourth leg to the stool a couple of years ago.
Lining?
Lining. Yeah. Honestly, the first iteration of that project is right now in final design. We're expecting to have it out to bid at the end of this month. But the idea behind that is we have a lot of specifically corrugated metal. They're basically a very thin metal wall pipe. They were very, very popular in the late 60s, 70s, and into the 80s. They had a life expectancy of, let's say, 40 or 50 years max. All of them are now either past or at the end of that life expectancy, and they're all in very poor condition. We started looking at some of the larger and more important of those to try to line them. We've done a lot of lining with the sewer system very successfully. Rather than digging up the street and replacing that infrastructure, we're able to slip, basically it's a sock that's impregnated with epoxy. You slide it into the pipe and then you cure it. So it cures to be a fully structural, self-supporting pipe within a pipe. If you have a section of stormwater drain that has enough capacity, it's not undersized, that is a very cost-effective way of doing it. Not every pipe is going to be able to be fixed that way. If the pipe is already undersized, that doesn't help. And a lot of the pipes are just in too bad of a condition.
Yeah.
There's nothing left to slide a sock into.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's not going to be the solution for everything, but we're hoping that we can get a lot of mileage out of that because honestly, we've got about 20 miles of that corrugated metal pipe, and it's going to be incredibly costly to repair it.
I do think that not only is a cost saver and a time saver, but it also just helps with the disruption in the area. And
Yeah, particularly if we don't have to dig up the street to replace the water in the sewer. It's a very attractive option.
All right, anything else you want to talk about this morning?
Can I get on my soapbox for a second?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Long term, we can't just keep building bigger pipes.
True.
Right? The fact of the matter is that we are seeing more intense storms, more frequently, more stormwater to manage. I don't think building bigger and bigger pipes is going to be the long-term solution.
Right.
We really need to start working with more natural approaches. Green infrastructures is kind of the buzzword in the industry. So, for example, with the downtown project, we're going to be incorporating a number of, they're called Silva cells. It's a structure that provides space for the tree roots and provides capacity to hold stormwater. So we direct stormwater into these basins, essentially, that can hold the water while the tree absorbs it. If it overflows that, it goes to the storm drainage system, but a lot less will have to go to the storm drains than otherwise would have to. And it provides the trees a healthier environment so we don't get the problems we have with root-bound trees and trees dying prematurely because they don't have enough room to grow. Those sorts of natural solutions, they're not free, they're not cheap, they take more maintenance, but ultimately that's going to be a more viable long-term solution to the stormwater issue.
Yeah, really great point. So make sure you invite Asa out when those are being installed. I think that would be a great video. We could sort of talk through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would love to. I think there's a lot that happens that people don't realize is involved. So being able to put eyes on it, I think would be really cool for a lot of people.
All right.
All right.
Well, thanks for coming in, Don. We really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
And so, Asa, I know we like to end the podcast really talking about positions, openings in the city. And we do have an opening I want to highlight. Our HR director is retiring.
Right.
Yeah. So probably end of August or early September. Yeah, I'm twisting her arm to keep her as long as I can. We've started the recruitment process for that position, but it's going to take a while, and it's a very important position throughout this organization, working to implement policy, but also the recruitment, the retention work that they've been doing, and it's a department head position, and so I'm hoping we'll be able to recruit a lot of interest. I don't think it's posted yet on the city's website, but it will be soon. And also our airport director is retiring. Now he is retiring in, I think it's October, but we have already posted that position. We've started to get a little bit of interest. That's a tough one also to recruit for. We don't have a lot of airports around here, so it's not like we're stealing from other small airports to bring in an airport director. We'll have to see the pool of candidates that we get for that. It'll likely be a more national even recruitment process.
Definitely. And one third one that I want to highlight only because our city attorney, I was passing her in the hall and she mentioned it. We are also still hiring for an assistant city attorney. So share those openings far and wide, share them with your friends. Go to keennh.gov/jobs. I just want to highlight there's a couple of community nights coming up. There will be one on July 24th. That's a Thursday at the bike park. And then on July 31st, there will be another one at the skate park. Those are both Parks and Rec community nights. And then the citywide community night will be August 19th. We've talked about it a little bit. So that'll be really fun. It'll be a touch a truck. There will be burgers and hot dogs and
ice cream
and lots of water.
And lots of water from CNS.
So be sure to mark your calendars for those. And I think if that is it, then we will wrap up for today.
Sounds good.
All right. We will see you next time. Thanks for listening to City of Keene in Focus. We'll see you next time.